I wish I could be more help.
Would you mind telling us where you'll be stopping in town, ma'am? It's possible we might want to contact you again.
Well, I don't have any reservations. I was thinking of staying at a hotel close to downtown.
Well, there's a big convention going on in town now, Miss Lewis. Most of the places are pretty crowded. We'd be glad to help you find hotel space if you like.
Oh, well, that's certainly very nice of you. Sergeant Friday, could I see you a minute, please?
Yeah, sure. Excuse me. Yeah, Betty.
Well, for a policewoman, I'm not bad at checking diapers.
What do you mean?
Right here, the valise the mother left with Mrs. Lewis.
Did you come up with anything?
I didn't think so at first. I went over the valise, everything inside, nothing. Then I started putting the things back in the bag. I found this in the stack of diapers right there. Paid receipt for a hospital bill, maternity ward.
Santa Maria Hospital, Tucson, Arizona.
There's the patient's name right there at the top.
Dorothy Miller.
12:30 p.m. A local broadcast and an APB were gotten out on Dorothy Miller. Then we sent a communication to the Tucson Police Department laying out the story for them and asking them to check with the Santa Maria Hospital there for a possible lead on the missing mother. Meantime, the baby was removed to the General Hospital. We found accommodations for Mrs. Lewis in a downtown hotel. We dropped her off there, and then we drove back to the bus depot on 6th Street. We tried to locate the driver of the bus on which the Miller woman and her baby had arrived that morning. We were told he was off duty and that he wouldn't report back in until 8 o'clock the following morning. We left our card along with a message for the driver, asking him to contact us as soon as he returned. For the rest of the afternoon, Frank and I, along with 2 other men from Juvenile Division, checked with all the bus depot personnel, but we were unable to turn up any kind of a lead. After that, we started making the rounds of the hotels, bars, restaurants, and taxicab stands in the neighborhood. The same results, nothing. 7:55 a.m. the following morning, I reported back in for work.
Good morning, Joe.
Oh, hi, Betty. Frank check in yet?
Yeah, he went out for a minute, said he'd be right back.
What do you know? Anything new?
Communication for you from the Tucson PD. Kickback on that query you got off to them yesterday.
You see this?
Yeah, confirms the fact the woman had her baby in that hospital. Still not much help, though.
Yeah, I see. We checked out her last known address in Tucson. She moved. No forwarding address, no line on her friends or relatives.
Well, the day the baby was born seems to check out.
Yeah, June 24th. Makes the baby just about 7 weeks old. This part doesn't make much sense, though.
The Miller girl's description?
Yeah, Ms. Lewis said Dorothy Miller was small and dark. Long red hair, dark eyes. People at the hospital describe her as being fairly tall. Blue eyes, short brown hair, about 29 or 30 years old.
Mrs. Lewis said the Miller girl just turned 20, didn't she?
Yeah. Sure doesn't figure, does it?
A little too much to write off as coincidence. 2 Dorothy Millers having babies, same day, same hospital.
I just happened to think, this description of the Miller girl.
Uh-huh.
Fairly tall, short brown hair. Ms. Lewis has short brown hair, hasn't she?
Hi, Joe.
Morning, Frank.
You know that bus driver we wanted to talk to, the one that drove the bus that Dorothy Miller and the baby came in on yesterday?
Yeah.
Well, he came up to see us. He's in the next room. I've been talking to him.
You saw this answer from Tucson.
Yeah. I think we got the tie-in.
How's that?
That description Mrs. Lewis gave us of Dorothy Miller. The driver doesn't remember anyone like that on his bus. He remembered Mrs. Lewis, though. She didn't get on the bus at Dallas. She didn't sit next to a young girl with a baby either. Driver says he's sure of it.
Well, then what's the pitch?
Mrs. Lewis got on the bus at Tucson. She had a baby in her arms.
.35 a.m. Frank Smith and I continued to interview the bus driver, the same man who'd been driving the bus on which Mrs. Lewis and the abandoned baby and his mother supposedly had arrived in Los Angeles the day before. The more we talked to the driver, the more he convinced us that the story we'd gotten from Mrs. Marjorie Lewis was a long way from the truth. He repeated that he was absolutely sure that Mrs. Lewis did not get on the bus at Dallas, that she boarded the bus at Tucson, and at the time she got on, she was holding a baby in her arms. He was just as positive that Mrs. Lewis held the baby in her arms all the way into Los Angeles, and that she did not sit next to a young red-haired girl, but an elderly woman. He also told us that none of his passengers on that particular trip fitted the description of Dorothy Miller as given us by Mrs. Lewis. 8:50 a.m. Before the bus driver left, we got his address and a phone number where we could get in touch with him if necessary. 9:05 a.m. Frank and I got in the car, drove to the downtown hotel where Mrs. Lewis was staying. She told us that her husband, Army Captain Walter Lewis, had arrived in from overseas earlier that morning and checked in at the hotel, that he was downstairs in the hotel barber shop.
That's quite a parade they're having down there.
Yes, ma'am.
How's the baby? Are they taking care of him? Is he all right?
Yes, ma'am. We checked with the hospital. He's doing fine.
Oh, I'm glad. And the Miller girl, Dorothy Miller, did you find out anything?
We haven't been able to locate her. No trace of her at all. That's why we're here, Mrs. Lewis. There are a few things we'd like to have you straighten out for us.
Well, I'll be glad to do anything I can to help. I think I already told you everything I know about the girl.
We'll be honest with you, Ms. Lewis. We don't think you're telling us the truth.
What? I don't understand.
We talked to the man who was driving the bus she came in on yesterday. The same bus you say Dorothy Miller and her baby were on.
Yes, that's right.
Well, the bus driver couldn't remember the Miller girl, told us none of his passengers even came close to her description.
Well, there were quite a few people on the bus. I guess you can't blame him for not remembering her.
He remembered you, Mrs. Lewis. You were sitting near the front of the bus. He doesn't remember anyone with a baby sitting next to you, though.
I guess he made a mistake. He can't remember everything.
He said you were holding the baby.
I don't understand this. What is it you're trying to find out?
When we talked to you yesterday, you told us that you got on the bus at Dallas. Isn't that right?
Yes, what would that have to do with it?
Well, the bus driver says you got on at Tucson. He seemed to remember it pretty well. Says when you got on the bus, you were holding a baby in your arms.
That's silly. He's wrong. He must have me confused with somebody else.